Went to the propane place today and they asked me if I was a vet, military vet, and I said yes. And they gave me a fill for a 20-pound tank for $11 instead of $14 because I was a vet. So I got 3 tanks filled. But then it went downhill from there. I thought I'd give you a little story, tell you how things have really got complicated for this old vet. I went in the military in '91. I was in the Navy. Of course, went to boot camp in Chicago, and then I went to Groton, Connecticut for submarine training. That was 6 weeks. And then I went home. I think I went home after boot camp too, and then I went home after sub school, and I got married to my high school sweetheart. And I had a credit card. We lived on that credit card. We got an airplane ticket. Of course, I got a military discount for that ticket also. And then we got on the plane, went up to Seattle, Washington. And she wore this jumpsuit that made her look pregnant. It was comfortable, is why she wore it, because it was an all-day trip and it was going to be miserable. So we get to SeaTac Airport in Seattle, and we're not sure how to get to Silverdale, Washington, or to Bangor, Washington, more specifically. You know, I'm trying to figure all this out. I didn't understand anything, and of course, I mean, we're very young. I was 18, 19. She was 7. I guess I was 19, she was 18, that's right. Finally, we find this person who is transporting a bus from SeaTac Airport to Silverdale. Well, I asked about Bangor, Washington. I said, well, you can't get on Bangor, Washington, or she couldn't, because that's the military base. So we went to Silverdale, got a hotel, stayed there for a week, trying to sort everything out. We went up there a week early. I had 2 weeks worth of leave, so we could find an apartment. Oh, I tell you, it was stressful. So we stayed in a hotel, ate Burger King because it was right next door. I looked around, finally found an apartment. It didn't have furniture, didn't have anything. Eventually, the landlord furnished it for us. Of course, we had to pay extra for the furnishings, but as time went on, we were able to get our own furniture and give him his furniture back. Got a TV and a couch, a bed, a water bed. That's right, yeah, we got a water bed. And we had to do all this before I went on my first patrol. I lucked out when I went up there. On a submarine, on a boomer submarine, you had a gold and blue crew. I was on gold crew. The gold crew just returned from sea. So I got on gold crew just as they returned. So I had 3 months while blue crew was out to sea that I could get everything transitioned for my wife and I. But that first week in that apartment, until I got paid again, you get paid every other, well, I think it was the 15th and the 1st. It seems like that's right. It was every 2 weeks, whatever it was. So I had to wait until I got paid again before I could do anything. And so the credit card ran out of money, which we kind of expected, and we were out of money. So there were several days there where we didn't have any money, no food. It was getting tough. Macaroni and cheese, I think we scrounged some of that up, but then you had to get milk and butter. So you're eating macaroni and cheese without milk and butter. You're just putting water in it. It was really a suffer type of experience. Now, we lived right on the Sound, right next to the water. You would have thought that I would have been smart enough, of course I was pretty young, that I would have thrown a line out into the water and picked up a fish or something, so we could eat. And when we finally got paid, we went to the grocery store. Now, remember, we were very young and first experience, married, being alone in an apartment by ourselves, and we got the calculator out and we're punching the calculator. Everything we're buying, make sure we had enough money. And to fast forward a little bit, later we went to her dad's house, her mom and dad's house, and her mom took her shopping and my wife was punching the calculator. Well, of course, her dad was really proud that we were budgeting like that we were using a calculator in the store. He said, I never thought she would do that. Well, you didn't have a choice. I mean, we just didn't have any money. We ended up buying, I can't remember if it was that first off season or if it was the second. I can't imagine that I left her there without a car. So I'm guessing it was the first one. I got a taxi and I went to Gig Harbor, Washington. It was a $50 trip in that taxi to buy a car. It was a 1968 Chevy Bel Air. It was ancient, antique. It was a great car, but it had a broken leaf spring in the back. And I went to the hardware store and bought a crowbar. And I was able to wedge that crowbar up in there to hold that thing together. It was terribly unsafe, but that's the only thing I could do to fix it. I mean, I could have gotten somebody to weld it. It had been welded before. So, I mean, we were really broke. I mean, things got better for us, don't get me wrong. As time went on, we got a new truck. Eventually got a Suzuki Sidekick. Sure was a rough time. Well, then you fast forward in my life, 2008 was a really bad time for me. I was self-employed, had my own business, been running it for 8 years. And things were really going well. Within 2008, the recession hit, and it just, all my customers just stopped. I primarily served manufacturers who manufactured parts for the automotive industry. Well, as you know, in 2008, the automotive industry just crashed. And I lost, I think, all of them. Maybe one, maybe two I had left, not many. I had one close by. I lived out in the middle of Missouri on Highway 70, and I would have to drive all the way to St. Louis every day because that was one of my clients, and he hired me full time. I don't know if it was out of mercy or, I mean, we did a lot of good work, but he paid me a lot of money to get through this problem, but it really wasn't enough. So we ended up buying goats and ducks and chickens and sheep. I mean, it was just a backyard. It wasn't a homestead. It was just a backyard that we put all these animals in. I remember we bought tents, little pup tents, so the sheep and the goats could sleep in. And that did really well. It was a good setup, just right there in the backyard. Of course, it was a small town. It was it was incorporated, but they really didn't care. We got rid of the roosters, so the roosters didn't make a bunch of noise. Ended up we had to get rid of the goats too, because when she had a kid, goats have kids, we tried to separate the kid from the mom, and she would just scream. Of course, the neighbors, you don't want to be careful with the neighbors. So we didn't have any roosters, but we got by just eating those farm animals and the eggs. And we were looking for chickens, and somebody said they had ducks for like $25, and they were like, I don't know, 30 ducks, but we had to take them all. So we took them all and brought them home. Man, there were a lot of ducks. We get a lot of duck eggs. She couldn't eat duck eggs. They have too much vitamin B12 in it. And if you've had it, in her case, it's a lot of women, if they've had a child, if they get too much B12, it makes them sick to their stomach. Not saying you shouldn't take B12. I mean, yeah, you should eat B12. But these duck eggs had just a massive amount of B12. Fast forward again, fortunately, this time, I am prepared for these crises. I've learned throughout my life that you can't just rely on everything being good all the time. It's not. And you're always going through these cycles of suffrage. I mean, 2003, I didn't even tell you about 2003. I got on a lawnmower and I was able to cut grass around town, and we did okay in 2003. But here we are again. And I think this time it's much, much worse for the economy. If I were living the same way that I was living in 2008, in the military, and in 2003, I don't think we could make it. We don't have to buy a lot of food because we have all these chicken eggs. We have all that chicken that we've butchered over the last 2 summers. So the only reason we go shopping is just to get a variety of food. We don't have to go shopping. I've said this many times, but the prices are just through the roof. I mean, you think about it, we're heading into what they're calling a recession, but it's got to be a depression. There's no way you can have so many things coming together all at once. We have nearly hyperinflation. It's nearly out of control in my mind. They keep raising the interest rates. So if you live on credit, if you have a mortgage or you want to buy a new car, you can't. That's why they're raising the interest rates. They don't want you buying right now. They got to get that inflation down. Well, while they're doing this, it's shutting down manufacturing. You're not buying a car, so that means the manufacturer can't produce a car to sell to you. So now we're going into a recession. Eventually, a recession is going to turn into a depression. And I don't believe there are a lot of people that can deal with a depression. When you really look at history, you had 2 groups of people. You had one group who thrived. They did so well because they were able to raise their own livestock. They were able to do things on their own. They had ingenuity. And they just don't have these kind of things anymore. And then you had the other group who lived in Hooversville, which is a city park, living in tents. I think that's what we're going to have now, and I think the Hoovervilles are going to be extremely populated versus the thriving and self-sustaining lifestyle. I just don't think a lot of people are prepared for this. I don't know how prepared people were back in the 30s and the 40s when all this happened the first time, but I think they had skills that they don't have now. We've lost these skills. I mean, I hear people in the comment section all the time saying, oh, I don't know how to do that, I don't know how to do that. I'm sure people knew how to do these things back then. So we go to the grocery store today, and I'm telling you, it was just out of range to buy food. Normally we can go up to the grocery store and buy food for $180. Well, we go to two Save-A-Lots, and they're miles apart from each other. But it depends on what we got to do in town. We go to one or go to the other. Well, propane is by one Save-A-Lot, and it's by what we consider the cheaper Save-A-Lot. So we go to the Save-A-Lot, and they're nearly out of food. Now, we have this bag chicken that we are going to buy because we're starting to feed the cat chicken, canned chicken like this, because it's so much cheaper than buying cat food, and she eats it. So we went to buy it, and I was expecting the prices to have come down, and they did, and they were still $7.90 a bag. But that still makes it cheaper than buying cat food, canned cat food. Now, we also buy her dry cat food to supplement, but it's empty right now. But you can see we do try to make sure she's healthy. We're looking at the other stuff, just sausage and everything's just way too pricey. So, of course, we put on our depression hat. Okay, we're in a depression, we're gonna have to do something different. So we have a meat grinder. And so instead of buying sausage at $3 or $4 a pound, we bought pork butts for $1.49 a pound and brought it home, and we ground it up. And I think she's gotten 10 to 15 pounds, or packages I should say, of sausage like that. It's about a pound per pack. So now all she has to do is flavor it, season it, make it taste good. And we've done this in the past. I mean, it's just an easy way to do it. So when you're looking at $3 a pound for meat, and you can find something for $1.49, it's fantastic. So then we went to the other Save-A-Lot because they were so short on food. They didn't have a lot of food. We went over there, and it was just incredibly priced high. I was telling you about that bag chicken being $7.40. It's the cheaper Save-A-Lot. Went to the other one, it was $9.90. That means that it would actually be cheaper now to buy cat food if we had to buy that chicken than it would be to buy the bag chicken and can it ourselves. But I went ahead and bought the $7.90, I think it was, $7.40, $7.90. We went ahead and bought that, got 3 bags. That'll give us 20 jars. Now, unfortunately, that takes the price up to about $1 a jar. Starting to get a little high, but we eat that food too. So when you consider that we're sharing it with the cat, it's not so bad. But when you think about it, we already know that the military is telling soldiers and sailors, Marines, and airmen that they need to go on food stamps because they're not even paying enough to keep up with the inflation. I don't see much changing, except it just keeps getting worse in our society. You better be prepared so you can thrive. So if you'll click this up next box to take to a video where I was talking about how to can all this. So I hope I can inspire you to start thriving, because it's here. Thanks for watching.